Hello everyone, I am Afreen and welcome to today's lecture. Today my topic is going to be about Viktor Frankl's model of healthy personality. My topic will be covering 10 major objectives which will improve your understanding of Viktor Frankl's model of healthy personality, Frankl's existential theory, new dynamics, Frankl's search for meaning in chaos, ways to find meaning in chaotic situations, the self-transcendent person, the motivation of the healthy personality. The nature of the self-transcendent person. So, let us start with what Viktor Frankl's model of healthy personality is. Existential psychiatrist Viktor Frankl led a remarkable life. Anti-Semitic incidents, persecution, cruelty, physical assault, hunger, and emotional humiliation were all experienced by him. The loss of dignity and the passing of his wife, parents, brother, however, shaped his concept of human nature, which holds that the need for meaning is what motivates human behavior. Before the Second World War, Frankl created the foundation for his existential method of psychological practice. His experiences in the concentration camps, however, reinforced his belief that people can overcome suffering and misfortune by looking for a meaning and purpose in life. The catastrophes in Frankl's life dramatically put his theory to the test. His perspectives on the search for meaning and his personal encounters with it have had an impact on theorists, practitioners, academics, and lay people all around the world. The purpose is to examine Frankl's search for meaning in a chaotic, unpredictable, and life-threatening environment via the prism of new dynamics. Let us now discuss the Frankl's existential theory. Frankl's thesis has been positioned in the tradition of existential philosophy which anchored in existentialism. He recounted an incident from his youth that served as the basis for his theory. When Frankl's teacher described life processes in terms of oxidation and combustion, he questioned whether that was all there was to life and if there were any other implications. Later, Frankl used the term nihilism to denote reductionist. Frankl believed that by characterizing people as mere machines rather than having the capacity to transcend their singular physicality, reductionism failed to understand the specialness of humanness. The pursuit of meaning, according to Frankl, is what drives people to live their lives. Instead of viewing a person as a two-dimensional machine made up of distinct parts, his idea emphasized the necessity to acquire the skills required to discover meaning. One of the main ideas of Frankl's existential theory was that a person might transcend their circumstances. A person has the power to choose the meaning of their existence, and it is up to him to create and choose its particular meaning, according to Frankl. Furthermore, having the freedom to interpret events has the potential to turn even the most hopeless circumstances around. Now we will be talking about another concept put forward by Viktor Frankl, which is new dynamics. According to Frankl, achieving emotional balance is not the goal of mental health. Rather, existential dynamics are two extremes of field of tension, with one end representing the meaning and the other end representing the person who will carry out that meaning. Frankl's existential philosophy, which is founded on a person's desire to find meaning in life, uses this idea as a cornerstone. No dynamics is Frankl's term for this conflict between a person's ultimate objective and where they are right now. The word no dynamics is derived from noetics, a key component of the Austrian philosophical psychological school to which Frankl belonged. Greek word nous, which means mind or spirit, is where the phrase got its start. In light of this, the noological dimension, as defined by Frankl, is the specifically human experience of escaping one's surroundings and entering the realm of noetic phenomena. In order to reorient themselves towards their sense of purpose in life, humans should strive to create this tension, according to Frankl. An individual gains motivation and a sense of purpose from this ongoing tension. According to Frankl, striving for a condition of emotional homeostasis is good for one's mental health, and the stress brought on by a deadline is what gives one's life meaning. In light of this, Frankl said that no dynamics is a healthy state for a person to be in, and that despite the fact that a state of emotional homeostasis is generally reassuring, no dynamics is what one should aspire to establish in their lives. Let me bring your attention to another objective of today's lecture, which is Frankl's search for meaning in chaos. Frankl's theory of no dynamics and homeostasis is the key concept that clarifies the connection between his chaotic inner and exterior worlds and his consequent urge to find meaning in the disorder. Frankl struggled throughout his life to make sense of it all, particularly between 1942 and 1945 when he was incarcerated in concentration camps. He never stopped attempting to find the significance in these struggles. Frankl discussed many principles and strategies to help others find meaning in their lives. Frankl had utilized 8 specific strategies in order to create meaning within his chaotic environment, and these are creative pursuits, servicing others, contradictory experiences, the commitment to a decision, spiritual connection, perceiving meaningless tasks through a meaningful lens, creating and chasing goals, and lastly, maintaining an unconditional attitude of strength. Now coming to another objective of my topic, which is ways to find meaning in chaotic situations. Viktor Frankl explores how people may find purpose even in the most horrific circumstances, such as the conditions seen in Nazi-era concentration camps in Germany. Frankl discussed his experiences as a Holocaust survivor and how they influenced his perception of meaning. According to Frankl, there are 3 ways through which one can find meaning in life. The first one is will to meaning. Frankl discovered there were 3 ways to find purpose in life during his 3 years in prison: through work, through love, or through pain. The will to meaning is the name he gave to his idea. Frankl would lose himself in fantasies about writing his book, expanding his beliefs about logotherapy, and making further contributions to psychology when he thought about the work he intended to perform once he was free. For instance, Frankl's nearly finished novel was taken away from him when he first arrived in Auschwitz. He would frequently picture this manuscript in his mind's eye and rewrite it repeatedly. This was only one example of how, despite his circumstances, he managed to find some purpose. The importance of his wife is one of Frankl's most tragic examples. When they arrived at the camp, Frankl and his wife were no longer together. He was unsure of her whereabouts and her expected return date. His thoughts were continually engaged with the idea of seeing his wife again. He claimed to have sensed her presence physically at times. He would later learn that his wife had been killed in Auschwitz, probably not more than a few miles from his own barracks. Frankl persisted despite this. Frankl's way of thinking gave him purpose and enabled him to persevere in the face of hardship in the Auschwitz and Dachau concentration camps where he was held. He tried to find meaning in every tiny moment rather than dwelling on the life he left behind. Frankl passed the time by reflecting on what was meaningful to him, whether it was the prospect of being reunited with his wife or his ongoing consideration of the concept of logotherapy. He discovered significance in his pain, since that is the essence of what it means to be human. The second way through which one can find meaning is logotherapy. Man's search for meaning, one would say, is almost entirely about Frankl's logotherapy, first in illustrating its use, then in describing the real science underlying it. The goal of the psychology discipline known as logotherapy is to assist individuals in discovering meaning in their lives. The Third Vienna School of Psychotherapy was another name given to the idea in honor of Sigmund Freud and Alfred Adler's earlier contributions. Frankl, in contrast to Freud and Adler, thought that the main driving force in a person's life is the desire for existential significance. Since we suffer significantly when our meaning is completely unknown to us, Frankl claimed that we acquire therapy that emphasizes existentialism. Existential frustration is a type of worry that causes us tremendous mental suffering, according to Frankl. The result, in Frankl's view, is existential despair, a melancholy state in which we rarely consider the purpose of existence. Frankl provides evidence to support this notion from his own experiences in the concentration camp, emphasizing how frequently he witnessed people who live meaninglessly struggle to survive. The goal of Frankl's development of logotherapy was to build on the individualistic and psychoanalytical concepts introduced by Freud and Adler. Since neither psychologist before him had really addressed it, Frankl realized that there is a single unifying factor that motivates us all. Logotherapy has assisted thousands of people in overcoming various types of psychological pain. Since the book's 1947 publication, the school of thinking ultimately played a role in the development of cognitive behavioral therapy, which is still employed by psychologists today. And the third way is the meaning of life. Conventional thinking about the meaning of life usually involves a lifelong task that is unchanging. If one finds meaning in becoming a musician, it is assumed that they practice day in and day out. The same goes for writers, artists, and entrepreneurs alike. But Frankl's idea of meaning is a bit different. Rather than sticking to one objective meaning, Frankl argues that meaning is not only subjective but ever-changing. In order to live a meaningful life, we have to identify what is meaningful to us in every moment. There is a kind of mindfulness to meaning, a level of focused attention where we must focus on identifying what we find meaningful. Let me bring your attention to another objective, which is view of the person underlying the theory. We have been given the freedom to exercise responsibility, to go beyond merely existing as animals and to live on a dimension of significance by emanating eternal ideals from a divine transhuman dimension, to lead highly individual lives as we uniquely take advantage of the chances and complete the duties that life gives each of us to exercise responsibility. Transhuman dimension, which is a level of being above that of animals' individuality, leads at its highest. Let us discuss the concepts which come under this very objective. The first is freedom to be responsible. The human person is fundamentally a spiritual being, a being with freedom and responsibility, rather than just a highly developed animal formed by forces of heredity and environment. We also don't have to act a certain way. We can respond with yes or no. Due to our ability to choose, we are unable to explain our behavior in terms of conditioning or drives. Instead, we must accept responsibility for the decisions we make because this freedom of choice is what makes us human. Another concept is level of being beyond animal existence. Without a sense of purpose, that is, spiritual direction in life, it is difficult to feel truly fulfilled. The effort to discover and experience this meaning in life is the opportunity offered to and identified by our conscience as something we are to realize or to grasp in each and every particular circumstance of our own personal existence. While it is true that we share many traits with animals on a physical and crude psychological level, we also possess traits that animals do not. The profound transcendence of the biopsychological, social, and/or a mix of these capacities is what makes someone a person. Self-transcendence is the ability to transcend circumstances, think critically about them, and take action as a result. The desire for significance will outweigh all other drives once we reach psychological and spiritual maturity. We are curious, willing to sacrifice things, and committed to a cause. Moving to another objective of this topic, which is Viktor Frankl, the self-transcendent person. Frankl endured 2 Nazi concentration camps for 3 years while living through the Holocaust. He came to understand the human capacity to find meaning and purpose in life despite excruciating suffering or the prospect of death from the experience of torture, famine, and cruelty beyond comprehension. Gordon Allport stated the following in the prologue to Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning: I quote, "How could he find life worth maintaining, everything lost, every value shattered, suffering from hunger, cold, and cruelty, hourly anticipating extermination?" A psychiatrist worth listening to is one who has experienced such extreme situations firsthand. No matter what happens, we can pick an attitude or a response to our situation. According to Nietzsche, who was mentioned by Frankl in 1962, I quote, "He who has a way to live can suffer with nearly anyhow." Frankl developed a type of psychotherapy he called logotherapy for those whose lives lack purpose. Three guiding ideas serve as the foundation for this therapy: the freedom of will, the will for meaning, and the meaning of life. The ability to choose how to respond to the circumstances of our lives gives us the freedom of will to overcome them. This point of view is vehemently opposed to the notion that our behavior is controlled by our biology as experiences as children or any other outside factor. The drive to look outside of ourselves for a meaning that will provide a reason for our existence is referred to as the will to meaning and the meaning of life. The ability to transcend the ego by devoting ourselves to a cause or a person is the foundation of mental wellness. In order to find meaning, we must take personal responsibility for doing so and for taking it once we do. Neurogenic neurosis, a condition marked by meaninglessness, purposelessness, aimlessness, and emptiness, is the neurosis that results from the absence of meaning. As a result, people experience an existential vacuum in which they feel bored, indifferent, and purposeless, and their lives have no meaning. Finding or rediscovering a sense of meaning and purpose in life, according to Frankl, is the only way to fill the existential void and pervasive neurogenic neurosis he witnessed throughout the world. Three methods are suggested by logotherapy to give life meaning: through production, through experiences gained from the world, and through attitude we take towards suffering. Now, let us discuss next objective, which is the motivation of the healthy personality. The will to meaning, which calls for us to have a purposeful life so that there is a reason to continue existing, is the primary driving force in Frankl's theory of motivation. There is no one single will to meaning. Rather, it is the personal to each individual and subject to change as circumstances do. As a healthy person sees the difference between who they are and who they should be and work towards achieving goals that give life meaning, this search for meaning exacerbates inattention. According to Frankl, psychological health requires an increase in tension, and a life without tension will result in neurogenic neurosis since there will be no sense to it. This model provides three main systems of values: creative values, experiencing values, and attitudinal values. These three value systems correlate to the three ways logotherapy brings meaning to life. That is, by what we give to the world in terms of a creation. By engaging in creative and productive work, one can realize their creative ideals and give their lives significance by coming up with useful ideas or goods, or by helping others. Intense life experiences are part of experiential values which can offer as much significance as creativity. When personal connection is sufficiently intense, this receptivity, which necessitates abandoning oneself to the experience of something like nature, might fulfill the purpose of existence. Accepting our fate, having the fortitude to endure our sorrow, and acting honorably in the face of tragedy are all examples of attitudes that are stated. When faced with circumstances that we are unable to control or escape, these principles offer life purpose. We can achieve self-transcendence, the highest state of being for a healthy personality, through finding significance in our lives. Now, let us talk about the ninth objective of this lecture, which is development of personality. The core of the personality is already present at birth and develops throughout life. At birth, life is an open possibility with the potential in us to achieve anything. Only at the end of our lives are we fully actualized. We are the force behind what we will become, that is, self-determining. Biologically, we are the work of our parents, but spiritually, we are our own life's work. During the course of development, uniquely human characteristics such as self-consciousness, conscience, and responsible behavior emerge. The person should be seen as a time gestalt. We are only fully developed in maturity and only then fully manifest uniquely human characteristics. Moving forward to the last objective, which is the nature of the self-transcendent person. According to Frankl, seeking meaning rather than pursuing oneself is what drives most people through life. A person who is psychologically healthy has transcended or progressed beyond the self-centeredness and is relating to someone or something other than oneself. When we have failed to fulfill our desire for meaning by failing to see the significance and purpose of the world, we turn our attention inside. This perspective varies from that of theorists who consider self-fulfillment or self-actualization to be the primary objective. Happiness is not advised to be actively pursued, rather it is supposed to follow from finding meaning in life and achieving a goal outside of oneself. According to this concept, healthy people exhibit the following qualities: being free to select their actions, taking personal responsibility for how they live their life and how they view their future, and not having their actions controlled by external causes. They can actualize creative, experiential, or attitudinal qualities, have transcended concern with self, are focused towards future goals, are committed to work, and they have the capacity to offer and accept love. They have found a meaning in life that suits them. To conclude, we can say that Frankl addresses a common problem to our era, that is, the lack of meaning in our lives. The belief in the will to meaning worked for himself under the harshest of living conditions, which suggests this approach may be even more applicable in today's world. An optimistic picture of human nature is painted as we are free of the past, not shaped only by social and cultural forces, and we are not dominated by the physical environment, no matter how oppressive. It is comforting to feel that we contain the power within ourselves, the spiritual freedom to decide our outcome. The challenge of personal responsibility to promote meaning and purpose in life is considered healthy and can lead to greater fulfillment of potential. This model assists us in this venture by suggesting 3 ways in which to find meaning in life: the creative, the experiential, and the attitudinal values. Frankl reminds us that meaning exists in every situation and that we are free and responsible to find it. The outcome is enriched living regardless of momentary circumstances. Viktor Frankl said, which I quote, "Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein, he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is unique as his specific opportunity to implement it." That brings us to the end of the topic. Thanks for watching.